October was a great month. I read books that made me feel stupid. I read books that made me feel uneducated. I read books that inspired me and caused me to grow as a person, and I discovered a new favorite. Let's talk about it. First, let me talk about the elephant in the room. I had you guys vote on what book I was going to read in October and vlog about, and Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy ran away with the poll. And that surprised me because I thought you guys liked me. I thought you guys wanted me to read Sword of Kaigen, Pet Sematary, what have you. But you guys chose Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. And at first I was angry because I was reading this book and I could not understand what was happening. This book is both too long and too short. It's only 350 pages. I was convinced I could binge through this book in a week. Instead, it took me 26 days to get through. I almost quit several times because Cormac McCarthy's writing style is not very accessible. He does not hold your hand at all. There are passages that are in Spanish. I only speak English. So most of the characters in this book do not even have names. A few of the named characters are memorable. And there's not a lot of punctuation, especially quotation marks. It is minimalistic, but also way too much book to chew. I got into my rhythm. I got into the swing of things towards the end. I do not regret reading Blood Meridian. It truly caused me to grow as a reader, but it was not, for the most part, enjoyable. There were times that had me laugh out loud. There were times that had me emotional and introspective. This book was inspiring. It was terrifying. It was humbling. I vlogged the entire experience. I went into this read blind. I didn't look up any chapter breakdowns to see what all the symbolism meant, so maybe I look stupid in that vlog video. But if you're interested in seeing a man who is fairly uneducated try to tackle one of the great works of American literature, you might find that one interesting, entertaining, I dare say. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I see why it is so polarizing. I see why it is so universally loved and hated by a very large population of readers. I understand why Cormac McCarthy gets all the praise that he does. Perhaps I don't feel as positive about him. I've read The Road, I liked it. I read Blood Meridian, which I liked more than The Road, but this was a hard read. Judge Holden is an unforgettable antagonist. Judge Holden was truly something special. This book is truly a work of alchemy. It is better than the sum of its parts, somehow. I can't explain why this book has received such universal acclaim, but I could feel why it does, if that makes sense. It truly is something special. All the trigger warnings, all the violence, all the bad things happen in this book. And the ending passage, the ending paragraph, I don't think I'll ever forget it. Next, we have a work of nonfiction that completely opened my eyes to something that I was entirely unaware of, and I'm talking about Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. This book made me angry. This book made me hopeful. It inspired me. It terrified me. And it filled me with righteous indignation. It educated me. I felt stupid. And I felt ashamed for not being aware, for not being knowledgeable about tuberculosis. Because if you're like me, a person from America, a person from the West, a person from the most affluent parts of the world, you're probably not aware that tuberculosis has been the #1 killer throughout all of human history. And there was a few years in the 2020s when COVID was the #1 killer, but tuberculosis has killed between 1 in 7 and 1 in 8 of every person that has ever been born on this planet. And it is entirely curable. It is entirely preventable in the year 2025, and yet it is still the #1 killer. And that is crazy to me. That makes me angry. It is terrifying. This book is truly a call to arms. It truly details the history of tuberculosis, how it has been perceived, how we have fought against it, how we cured it, and why in the year 2025 tuberculosis is still such a gigantic problem. This book will also make you hopeful, I hope. There's a lot of reason for optimism because tuberculosis is curable, it is treatable, it is preventable, and if we just have a little bit more of the global community working together to solve the TB problem, we could eradicate it. It could be something that almost never happens. And I do think we will live to see that day. But Green, he explains why it's not going to, this problem will not be solved as fast as it should. I'm so glad I picked up this book. I'm so glad that Blood Meridian was such an arduous read for me that I picked up some nonfiction to take myself out of the reading slump. I really think even if you prefer to read fiction, read some nonfiction every once in a while because it helps you grow as a person. And the more knowledge you know about our world, the more you can appreciate the little details in the fictional world we like to dive into. Definitely pick up this book. It's very short. You can read it in a weekend. Next, we have one of the great works of Chinese philosophy, and I'm talking about the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I read a few sections of this every day for the month of October, and it was a great book to meditate on. It was a great book to take bite-sized bites of throughout, think about the section, and move on. Taoism is something very alien to me because I'm a Westerner from a Christian background. So, a philosophical framework that is not religious, that acknowledges that the world is filled of paradoxes, filled of things that one can never completely understand, and not feeling the need to understand those things, not feeling the need to find the answers, but just making peace with the questions of life, is something that is very foreign to me. But this book really expanded my mind. I understand why it's a classic. I feel like in the year 2025, a lot of people would benefit from reading the Tao Te Ching because there's a lot of things outside of our control. But you can control your reaction to life, you can control the way you perceive things, and you can acknowledge that the things that you see in your life, the way you view the world, is not the objective reality that everyone else is experiencing. And this book, I really feel like could help build bridges between our fellow men, and there's a lot of value in that. I'm not a philosophy major. I never will be a philosophy major. I'm just a dude with a book and a camera. But I think you should give this book a try. You could read it in probably 2 hours. There is 80 something sections, a few paragraphs long. It's good. On the manga front, we have Love on the Other Side, a collection of short stories. I've heard a lot of great things about this over the years. I finally picked it up. And for the most part, I'm a little indifferent about it. There were 2 short stories in particular. There was one interesting take on Beauty and the Beast, and there was another story that I loved that was about a blind girl being trapped inside a house with a monster. That one sent chills down my spine. But the other stories I was kind of indifferent about. This book, this collection of manga, not a book, this picture book, is about vibes and themes. It's about how love can be bittersweet, love can be tragic, love can be inspiring, but it's all love. Love is so multifaceted, it's hard to accurately describe and explain and depict. And in that way, the short story collection was quite ambitious because I think it tackled love from very different angles, different types of love. And now that I'm talking about it, my opinion of it is growing. I wish the short stories were more conclusive. A lot of the endings seem a little bit open-ended. A few more pages, and I think there could have been a nice cathartic feeling for all of these short stories. That was perhaps not the author's intent, and I acknowledge that, and I recognize that. This is cute, it's bittersweet, it's depressing, it is inspiring, and reading this along with the Tao Te Ching was a really cool experience. And finally, last but not least, a book I finished in the last 2 days of October. A book that is now in my top 5 favorite books of all time, and I'm talking about The Exorcist. I'm sure you've heard about this book. I'm sure you're familiar with the movie. I never watched the movie. All I knew about The Exorcist was that it tells the story of a young girl who's been possessed by a demon or a devil, and it's supposed to be terrifying. And I don't mess with possession. I don't mess with that bad mojo. But after reading The Exorcist, I might pick up some more books in this subgenre of horror. Because, yes, this book was creepy. It was eerie. It was terrifying. But it was so inspiring. There were passages that I was reading in this book that sent shivers down my spine. The examples of faith and sacrifice and love and moving past one's shortcomings and finding wisdom and good in the evil that we're all surrounded by. Such an inspiring read. The one passage where it says that evil is a crucible of good, I will never forget that passage. This book had a very slow build-up. People aren't in denial about this young girl being possessed. They're trying to blame it on mental illness, and things get out of hand. Things escalate. I'm sure you're aware of the general structure of a possession story, but the ending of this story was amazing. I read this book along with my book club, And I was convinced I wasn't going to like it. I was making memes about how this book was going to be the worst book in the rotation. And instead, I read this book. And we're all reading it expecting to be terrified at some point. But instead, every day that passed as we were reading this book, we were all talking about how inspiring it was. And in my book club, we got atheists, we got religious people, all across the spectrum. And we were all moved and inspired reading The Exorcist. And very few of us were actually terrified. This is more of a thriller. I wouldn't say it's a horror story. I'm not sure about the movie. I'm sure the movie's terrifying because everyone from my parent generation thought the movie was terrifying. They were traumatized by it. It's a rare thing indeed when I read a book, and before I finish it, I know that this book is going to be one of my favorite books ever. I had about 40 pages left with The Exorcist, and I knew it was going to be in my top 10. It was an amazing reading experience. It caused me to grow as a person. It inspired me. Such a great example of faith and sacrifice and brotherly love. And it's such a great story about the struggle between good and evil. And if you believe in good and evil, I think you'll love The Exorcist. Way more introspective than I was anticipating. More about the inner struggles we all deal with as opposed to a story about a girl being possessed. So clearly, my book of the month is The Exorcist. This book changed me. This book caused me to grow. Blood Meridian was a really good book. And I think in any other month, almost any other month, that might have been my book of the month. Just because I was so proud of myself when I finished Blood Meridian. I grew as a person, and I was convinced that that was going to be the book of the month for October. And then less than 48 hours later, I read the last 150 pages of The Exorcist, and I cannot in good conscience put almost any book over The Exorcist. It's 50 years old, and I think it should be required reading. It's that good. It is accessible. It is thought-provoking. It is inspiring. There's beautiful writing, beautiful prose. It's introspective. It'll cause you to grow as a person, even if you're religious, not religious, what have you. Dang, The Exorcist surprised me. Blood Meridian, amazing book. The Exorcist, more my speed. More my type of story. Both great tales of good and evil and corruption and sacrifice and overcoming things. Great violence. Terrifying depictions of evil and cruelty. But The Exorcist left me a little bit more hopeful. I know Blood Meridian was not supposed to make me more hopeful, but dang it, I want to read a book, and I want catharsis, I want beauty, I want magic, and The Exorcist was truly something magical. So that's October. It was a great month. November's going to be an even better month. I'm going to be publishing a video every day the month of November, so keep your eyes open for that. 2025, I think it's going to be the best reading year I've ever had in my life. And that's an exciting thing. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.